when I'm in the channeling state, connecting to the Sassani people, I'm linking my consciousness with their homeworld, the three artificial intelligent structure moons that are orbiting their homeworld, as well as like members of the society. So, in other words, I'm really channeling the collective energy, but I think because we're doing this session, you're in a position where you can like ask deeper questions. So I'm kind of generally linking, but I think if you ask like, is this a singular being? Is this a collective? I think we might be able to actually parse through the energy and begin to understand some of the intricacies of like whom within the society we're speaking with. So I think this might be an opportunity to discover more about what's being accessed here. So I just want to let you know, as someone doing the questioning, you can go into that direction as well for more specifics.
All right, that's exciting.
Okay, cool. So anything before we start?
And I just want to thank you very much for sharing this.
Oh yeah, my pleasure. And thank you for doing these interviews. These are great interviews, by the way. All the guests you're getting, I mean, it inspired me to do this. So I mean, you're definitely doing an amazing thing. So thank you as well.
Thank you. Very fun.
And we are allowing for the transmission to be accessed through each of you. Understand that there is a telepathic link being formed to all beings, past, present, and future, who are accessing this particular transmission. This calibration is being made at this moment, and we are now commencing with the initial opening segment of our message for each of you at this moment. Without further ado, we'd like to introduce a new concept to your society to allow for each of you to understand more of a feline perspective, more of a cat-based awareness, because this is a message that many beings from the Lyrian society are bringing through, and they are wishing for us to begin to disseminate some of this information so it can be applied more practically, much more effortlessly in your world. And this idea is the following. Not only is everything neutral, but there are layers of collective belief system that make up your projections of the physical experience. And these are very subtle layers. The idea is to observe everything so neutrally that even your definition of things being physicalized goes away. To begin to look at things as an actual energy bubble. Each object, each person, each situation, each organism that you perceive in your reality is nothing more than an energetic bubble, a wave with a frequency bubble surrounding it. And the idea is that when you begin to observe reality through this point of view, which is akin to the point of view of the feline societies and feline beings, you will then be able to understand much more of the quantum attachments that each object, each person, each being has to one another. And through viewing things through this lens, you will actually begin to deconstruct the projected programs existing within the collective consciousness that may be imposed upon the reality, and you can then actually see reality from a much more personal, fundamental experience of it. And this is a message we wish to share for all of you, to actually begin to deconstruct the point of view that the physical reality is actually physical, because even that is a projection. Understand, the physical aspect of it is just a characteristic of it. It is not a fundamental quality. The fundamental quality is that it is still all energy, it is still all spirit, and you are able to reduce your understanding of it to that simplification if you so desire. And we thank you for your attention in hearing this initial idea, because for many of you, this will allow for you to open up what many people on your society call the third eye, what many people on your society call the sixth sense, because you will be able to see things from the energetic point of view very effortlessly, until it becomes, just as your current projections of physicality are, it will soon become automatic and natural once that point of view is embraced, if you so choose to use it. So thank you for your attention in this respect.
Thank you for sharing that.
You are welcome. Our pleasure.
I would like to gain a little bit of clarity on the idea.
All right.
The cats that are in our environment here,
Yes.
do they also perceive in that way?
They do, yes. That's why you oftentimes see your feline counterparts staring at objects. They're observing the entanglements that each object, each person has to everything within creation, but particularly in a way that's relevant to the being in the now. So the current version of the being they're experiencing, they'll actually observe its entanglements in that moment and its relationships and connections.
Oh. So if my cat is looking at me, it will be able to see the entanglements that I have with objects in the room, or?
Yes, objects in the room, your entanglements with other people, your entanglements with spirit guides, your entanglements with other incarnations, all of these things are available to the feline beings. And because the feline beings are essentially, how would you put it, remote viewing physical vessels for other forms of consciousness, different beings will actually be looking through your cat at different times. And depending on whatever being is looking through the cat will determine which aspect of your all-encompassing awareness is connected to. It will determine which version of that the cat is then observing.
So is there more to a cat other than that?
The cats in and of themselves have their own collective consciousness as actual animal consciousness on your world, and they have their own cycle of incarnation and their own personal reasons for incarnating that is relevant to the assistance of human collective consciousness. And that's one of the major reasons that felines were so highly praised in Egypt. The idea is that cats are allowing for humans to develop their sixth sense, and through their presence on Earth, it allows for beings to actually be able to much more effortlessly engage in that level of perception. So one of the reasons the cats are soul contracted to Earth is because they are here to assist people in developing this type of point of view. The cats, of course, also have their own personal reasons for incarnating that is less in servitude to humanity and more so relevant to their own expression as incarnated souls and their own learning processes. So they have their own level of autonomy, their own level of reasoning, and then they also have their level of servitude that is based in their free will choice to educate and assist and hold space for humans and other animals. And then, of course, they have their contracts to other beings that are not localized on Earth, although some of them can be, to actually, again, sort of be like a drone or like a remote viewing physicalized being for those other consciousnesses.
So what percentage would you say of their time, like my cat, what percentage is it actually doing that type of a service for me and other beings?
It truly depends upon your own energetic state as well as the collective energy of Earth at the moment. So understand that at certain points in time, your own vibration, which is going to be in resonance with the collective vibration, will actually determine what type of consciousness is able to then more easily remote view through the feline organism. So at a very, very high vibrational moment where you are acting on your passion, you are excited, you will attract beings looking through the cat that are in resonance with this. And oftentimes, the more in unity consciousness you are with other people, feeling like you are part of one human organism, one human family, that actually allows for cats to be able to bring in multiple observers at one moment, and they are all essentially sharing the cat's vision, and they are actually using the purr ability the cat has to transmit their own activation frequencies. And the cat also will use its purr based in its own desire to simply self-soothe or to work with a person, but the purr will actually be used to transmit energies from these other societies and other beings.
Wow. Is that the only way, like when a cat is, sometimes they can bat at you unexpectedly. Would that ever be another being doing that through the cat, or is that more of a cat's personality?
It can be both.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, thank you.
Of course.
I would like to ask some other questions, maybe.
Let's go. Yes.
All right. Now, is there any individual Sassani being that you could describe yourself as now?
You would understand us as a group of Sassani beings that have dedicated ourselves to the exploration of consciousness, not utilizing ship-based technology, but utilizing our own awarenesses as actual ships, of projecting ourselves into different reality frameworks. And we do this across time. So you would understand us as projecting ourselves to be able to observe our society in its future, to be able to chart a map, to understand where certain actions, where certain decisions, where certain adventures will likely begin to bring us in a non-expectation-based way. So we essentially venture out into the streams of time to be able to understand about where our reality is shifting to and what types of options are available to us, so we have more to choose from in the realm of our excitement. Through being able to do this, we then disseminate this information throughout our collective, so this level of awareness is then in an accessible form for all members of our society. So each being will then have more options. We are, again, a group that typically stays consistent in its number of members. We will accept new members should they find that this type of work is exciting for them. We are not necessarily first contact specialists in this respect, but we are more so adventurers in the respect of looking into the quantum field of probability and then giving this to our society so they can then receive this bigger picture point of view. I myself, and I'm speaking as one individual within the collective, would go by the name in terms of its English translation would be Shikoi. Shikoi would be a name you could address me by if you wished. Understand that this is simply a English-based translation of my own natural vibration and my own natural expression.
Okay. So are you still in the time frame? I know you don't have time like we do, but do you have first contact specialists with ships?
Yes, absolutely.
Still have
They are active in our society right now. The collective and the groups of beings that are engaging with Earth that are currently in your perspective of time are absolutely interwoven into our perception of the Sassani experience, and we experience them as direct extensions of us. And you would understand us as being on that same timeline, quantumly interacting with your unique timeline.
Okay, that makes sense. But you're still engaging with first contact specialist work, I guess, since you're doing this type of thing.
Understand that the first contact specialists have done their job well enough where we can come through.
Oh, wow.
And there will be much more. understand that the role of a first contact specialist of typically any society, but in particular we'll speak on behalf of the Sassani, is just to begin to slowly over time introduce the energy state into your human collective. That is step one. Step two is to then bring in teachings, bring in instructions that then help the citizens of the society to generate that state within themselves. So part one is exposure. Part two is training in the ability to generate the state. Once that begins to happen, once humans have begun on a big enough scale to begin to embrace what we've described as part two, they are then in a position where the level of collective contact with the society, making the contact with them, will be determinant upon how deep into that vibrational state they remain, how generating of that state they are. And once enough of that happens, enough of the collective human energy is then opened up so other aspects of the society can then contact them. So many people are beginning to have Sassani contact. This is just one expression of that.
Okay, and all the Sassani contacts that people are having are not going to be first contact specialists anymore. It's going to be all kinds of things.
All kinds of things. You will have beings from our society who are well versed in medicine. You will have beings in our society who are well versed in science and technology. You will have beings of our society who are well versed in spiritual practices, meditation. You will have beings of our society who will actually be able to impart memories into beings on Earth, so more of their other incarnational experiences can then be accessed. And these are just some of the roles, because each member of our society, just like yours, is incredibly unique. And we will all gravitate to those members of our society who we have common interests with, and will then work together as a team to work with human beings on the Earth who are in resonance with our particular passions and our particular interests.
That's amazing. Now, before you all were doing this, we also received information, but that wasn't from Sassani Connections. Before the Sassani made first contact with us, we get downloads about singing and other forms that someone might be interested in, but
it was still coming through, but not in the direct contact way. Understand, first contact is when there's a formal introduction. This is me, this is my society, how are you, and let's get to know you. That is what we describe first contact to be. But the idea is that your consciousness is accessing information from all types of different reality frameworks. But we don't consider it to be first contact until it is made directly obvious within the physical reality framework, or whatever the reality framework is for whatever society we are engaging with.
So this is more about us being conscious that it is a Sassani energy coming through.
Absolutely, yes. And once you begin to understand that, that is when our society can begin to much more directly interact with each of you personally. Once you're able to distinguish between the different energetic states that you go into when you're interacting with different societies, will then allow for you to form personal relationships with each of these groups of different beings, whether it be plant beings or angelic beings or extraterrestrial. When you distinguish between the energy states, the relationship is then fostered and reinforced, and more information, more data, more experiences can then be shared.
So it's a process of distinguishing between the energy states.
Yes. And remember, that's just one way this can be expressed. For some beings, that's not entirely relevant. But for other beings who are going down that path of wanting to connect more to their star brothers and sisters, more of their other incarnations, this type of information may be more relevant for them.
What about the other people who they'll still be connecting, but they just won't be conscious of it?
Yes, they may not be conscious of the source of the transmission, but they will still get the transmissions.
Mm-hmm. Will they be able to use it as well?
It depends on the person's vibration. It depends on the amount of freedom the being is allowing themselves to experience. Because remember, your freedom is something you determine. You always have freedom, but your ability to access it is based on your perception of such. And depending, of course, upon the level of self-created, self-realized freedom the being has will then determine how much of the information they can apply. Because if the being has limiting beliefs where they believe, oh, I have this beautiful dream, but I can't possibly act on it, the limitation will then affect how much of that they can then crystallize into the reality framework.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for your offerings to our society.
It is our pleasure, and we thank your society for your offerings to us. This is a mutual exchange. For every time we get to interact with you, more information, more experience, more understandings of our point of view and your point of view as we view you as our ancestors are then able to be downloaded on both ends. And it allows for this linkage to co-create a reality where we can visit each other in the dream state, and where very soon, in individualized ways, we can begin to interact with you much more personally. And this is something that is becoming available. Understand, the collective experience of this will take a little bit of time, but for those of you who are ready, there are opportunities for much more personal levels of connections to be explored. And understand, the key is excitement. Please remember this. The key is excitement. If you want to connect with us, be in that vibration, embody that state. That's the doorway to our world. That is how you get to us. That is how you allow us to be your allies in this reality in a conscious and awakened manner.
Okay. Thank you. Very exciting.
Yes. Thank you again for this opportunity to speak, and we will see you all again very soon.